A deadline slips when one project is half written. 3 requests sit unanswered, and the most important task still exists only as a vague reminder. The cost is not just delay, it is the repeated restart tax of asking again and again what should happen next. The flow framework turns that scattered state into a working artifact called the flow ledger. Its output is not a prettier task list. It is a 3-move workday, 3 active outcome cards, each with a visible next action, a finish signal, and a place for anything blocked or deferred. The diagnostic question is simple. Which commitment is stealing flow because its next move is undefined? Answering it early prevents the day from becoming a negotiation between noise, guilt, and whatever arrived last. Overwhelm persists because knowledge work hides unfinished decisions inside harmless-looking lists. A line like update proposal may contain research, judgment, writing, approval, and a client dependency. Ranking that line as high priority does not make it executable. The common response is to collect more tasks, color code them, then carry the same ambiguity into the next block of time. What gets lost is not only speed. You lose reliable promises, clean recovery after interruption, and the ability to see which opportunity deserves protection. Symptoms include long lists, missed handoffs, and fatigue. The cause is usually unshaped work, commitments that have entered attention before they have been turned into a concrete outcome, next action, and dependency state. The flow framework controls 4 decisions: what gets captured, what gets shaped, what enters execution, and what changes after a stall. The flow ledger is the artifact that makes those decisions visible. Raw inputs land in a capture basin, not directly in the day. Shaped work moves to a shelf only after it has an outcome and a next visible action. Execution happens in the active current, where no more than 3 outcome cards can sit at once. Anything waiting on another person, a missing file, or a deliberate delay moves to the waiting shelf. After work ends, a friction mark records why a card moved smoothly or stalled. This framework applies to project-based knowledge work with deliverables and judgment. It does not solve true emergencies, regulated triage, or open exploration where no commitment exists yet. The first rule is capture without promotion. Every new request, idea, reminder, and loose promise goes into the capture basin before it earns a place in execution. This works because it separates noticing from committing. When a message arrives during deep work, the action is not to solve it or mentally carry it. Place a raw card in the basin with just enough context to recognize it later, then return to the active card. Use this rule for anything that might matter, but has not been shaped. Do not use it as a hiding place for decisions you already owe. If the commitment has a due handoff or active consequence, shape it before the day closes. The intended outcome is a clear mind without a swollen active list. The second rule is shaped by context of friction, not by category of life. Instead of sorting work into project names alone, ask what will make the next start difficult: missing information, a judgment call, writing effort, coordination, or low-energy administration. The same project may produce cards in several friction contexts. This selection criterion matters because flow is broken less by topic switching than by repeatedly changing the type of attention required. At the midpoint of a workday, run a 2-minute audit. Count the active cards, point to the next visible action on each, and remove any card that lacks a finish signal or dependency state. Then ask again, which commitment is stealing flow because its next move is undefined? The trade-off is that some project folders look less tidy, but execution becomes easier to restart. Consider an operations lead preparing a product launch handoff by Friday. The visible constraint is a half-day stakeholder review and 6 loose inputs from design, support, and engineering. In a normal list, everything looks urgent. In the flow ledger, the lead captures all inputs, then shapes 3 active cards. Draft the launch note, build the review checklist, and confirm the support handoff. The analytics wish list moves to the waiting shelf because it depends on an unavailable report. The decision is to protect the 3-card current instead of letting the attractive extra work enter. The action is concrete: 1 written launch note, 1 inspection checklist, and 1 owner confirmation. The trade-off is visible. The dashboard may wait. The result is an inspectable handoff package, not a feeling of being caught up. The takeaway is that flow comes from narrowing execution after capture, not from pretending fewer commitments exist. Prioritizing effectively means choosing which promise receives depth and which promise receives visible delay. The 3-card current is the threshold. No more than 3 outcome cards may be active, and each must have a finish signal for the current block. A finish signal might be a sent draft, a reviewed outline, or a decision request prepared for another person. This rule works because the mind can re-enter a card that tells it what finished looks like. It fails when the active card is really a container for 10 unresolved decisions. The correction is to split it until the current block can finish something inspectable. The practical decision changes from what feels most urgent to which 3 outcomes can move without creating hidden debt. That shift is where Overwhelm starts becoming operational. A consultant is balancing 2 client strategy decks and a same-day request for revised talking points. The morning plan fails when a client call runs long and the new request arrives with no acceptance criteria. Instead of adding it to the active current, the consultant captures it, then shapes it. The finish signal is a 1-page decision brief, not a rebuilt deck. 1 existing deck card stays active because a draft export is due. The second deck moves to waiting because it needs client data. The 3rd active card becomes the talking points brief. The trade-off is direct. The consultant delays polishing slides to answer the request in a smaller, inspectable form. After the block, the friction mark reads unclear acceptance test. Next time, similar urgent requests must be shaped with a requested output and decision owner before entering the current. The result is 1 exported draft, 1 brief, and a better entry rule for the next interruption. The framework has predictable failure modes. The first is hoarding, capturing everything but never shaping it, which turns the basin into a second inbox. Respond by clearing the basin at a fixed transition, such as the end of a work block or before closing the day. The second is smuggling, placing vague cards into the active current because they feel important. Remove any card that lacks a finish signal. The third is overfitting the board until maintaining it becomes the work. The ledger should be simple enough to reset in minutes. The fourth is ignoring friction marks. Without the learning loop, the same interruption or unclear handoff repeats under a new name. The framework cannot remove workload, but it can expose where workload is entering attention in an unusable form. Return to the slipped deadline and the question, which commitment is stealing flow because its next move is undefined? The operating change is now visible. First, capture without promotion so a new input does not automatically buy attention. Second, shape work by the friction that will block the next start. Third, protect the 3-card current and require a finish signal before execution. Fourth, park dependencies where they can be seen without being carried mentally. Fifth, mark the friction after a block so the next similar decision improves instead of repeating the same stall. This resolves the original tension by replacing a swollen, ambiguous list with a limited current of executable outcomes. The day may still contain interruptions and difficult trade-offs. The difference is that every accepted card has a next move. Every deferred card has a visible place, and every stall teaches the next card how to enter.